In the vast tapestry of human history, it was not always conflict or conquest that shaped the destinies of great civilizations. More often, it was the quiet, persistent movement of goods and ideas along ancient pathways. Trade was the lifeblood of the ancient world, a powerful current that connected disparate cultures across immense distances. From the arid deserts of Central Asia to the shimmering waters of the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea, the exchange of commodities fostered the growth of extraordinary urban centers. These cities were not just marketplaces, they were crucibles of innovation, where knowledge, beliefs, and technologies mingled and transformed, creating a world far more interconnected than one might imagine. The fundamental human need for resources not readily available in one's own land was the engine of this global exchange. Salt from one region was traded for grain from another. Precious metals, lustrous silks, and aromatic spices traveled thousands of miles to reach eager buyers. This movement of goods required organization, infrastructure, and safe passage, which in turn gave rise to powerful settlements situated at strategic locations. These cities became the essential nodes in a complex network, their fortunes rising and falling with the flow of commerce. They were the anchors of the ancient economy, their very existence a testament to the human drive to connect, to exchange, and to prosper through cooperation. These commercial hubs became magnets for people from all walks of life. Merchants and mariners, craftspeople and scholars, diplomats and pilgrims all converged within their walls. This concentration of diverse populations created a uniquely vibrant atmosphere, where new languages were heard in the streets and foreign customs became familiar. The wealth generated by trade funded not only the construction of grand monuments and defensive walls, but also the patronage of arts and sciences. The story of the ancient world is, in many ways, the story of these remarkable cities, which grew and flourished by facilitating the simple yet profound act of exchange between distant peoples. In this exploration, we will journey to three such titans of ancient commerce: Merv, Dilmun, and Aksum. Each city, in its own unique geographical setting, mastered the art of trade and, in doing so, became a beacon of wealth, culture, and influence. Merv stood as a vital oasis on the punishing Silk Road. Dilmun commanded the maritime routes of the Persian Gulf, and Aksum controlled a critical gateway between Africa and the Mediterranean world. By understanding their rise and eventual decline, we gain a deeper appreciation for the intricate and often fragile systems that have connected humanity for millennia, shaping the world we inhabit today. To control a trade route in the ancient world was to hold a position of immense power and influence. This authority was not necessarily derived from military might, but from the strategic command over the flow of valuable goods. Cities that were situated at the intersection of major pathways, whether on land or at sea, acted as gatekeepers. They could regulate the passage of caravans and ships, ensuring their safety in exchange for a portion of their cargo. This ability to tax commerce was a direct source of wealth, allowing rulers to fund their administration, build impressive public works, and maintain a stable and secure environment, which in turn attracted even more trade. The geographical location of a city was paramount. A settlement located at a natural choke point, such as a mountain pass, a river crossing, or a sheltered harbor, held an intrinsic advantage. Merv, for example, thrived because it was a rare and vital source of water in a vast desert, a necessary stop for any caravan traversing the Silk Road. Similarly, Dilmun's position in the Persian Gulf made it an indispensable intermediary for sea trade between Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. Controlling these strategic points was akin to controlling a bridge over a great river. All who wished to cross had to pass through, and in doing so, contribute to the prosperity of the gatekeeper. Beyond the economic benefits, control over trade routes brought significant cultural influence. These cities became cosmopolitan centers where ideas, technologies, and beliefs were exchanged just as readily as silks and spices. Merchants and travelers did not just carry goods, they carried their customs, their languages, their religions, and their knowledge. A city that welcomed this exchange became a vibrant melting pot, absorbing and adapting innovations from afar. This cultural dynamism made the city attractive and prestigious, enhancing its reputation and strengthening its diplomatic ties with distant kingdoms. Its influence spread not through force, but through the soft power of its cultural and intellectual vibrancy. Ultimately, the power of a trade city was built on a foundation of trust and stability. Merchants would only frequent routes where they felt their investments were secure. Rulers who understood this principle invested heavily in infrastructure, such as well-maintained roads, protected harbors, and secure storehouses. They established clear legal frameworks to resolve commercial disputes and used diplomacy to forge alliances that guaranteed safe passage through neighboring territories. By providing this predictable and safe environment, a city transformed from a mere geographical point into a reliable and indispensable hub, its authority cemented by its role as a facilitator of global prosperity. In the heart of Central Asia, surrounded by the unforgiving Karakum Desert, lay the magnificent oasis city of Merv. For centuries, it was one of the most important stops along the legendary Silk Road, the overland network that connected China with the Mediterranean world. Merv's significance was born from its geography. It was a rare and sprawling oasis, a life-giving sanctuary in a vast expanse of arid land. For the great caravans, laden with silk, porcelain, and other luxuries from the East, Merv was not just a convenient resting place, but an essential one. Here, travelers and their animals could find water, food, and shelter before continuing their arduous journey westward toward Persia and Europe. The city was a true crossroads, a point where several branches of the Silk Road converged. This prime location allowed Merv to become a bustling emporium, a place where goods from countless regions were bought, sold, and exchanged. Merchants from China, India, Persia, and the Roman Empire mingled in its crowded markets. The city's wealth was staggering, derived directly from the taxes and tariffs levied on the endless stream of commercial traffic. This income funded the construction of impressive fortifications, elaborate palaces, and a complex irrigation system that turned the surrounding desert into a fertile agricultural landscape, making the oasis even more self-sufficient and attractive to settlers. Merv was more than just a commercial hub. It was a remarkable center of cultural and intellectual exchange. Its strategic position made it a meeting point for different faiths and philosophies. Zoroastrian fire temples, Buddhist monasteries, and later, Christian churches and Muslim mosques all coexisted within its walls. This tolerance and diversity fostered a rich intellectual environment, making Merv a renowned center for learning, particularly in the fields of astronomy, mathematics, and medicine. Scholars were drawn to its extensive libraries, which were said to rival those of any city in the world at the time, containing manuscripts in a multitude of languages. The life of the city revolved around the arrival and departure of the caravans. These slow-moving processions of camels, sometimes stretching for miles, were the arteries that fed Merv's prosperity. The city's infrastructure was designed to support them, with large caravans providing secure lodging for merchants and their animals. Within these courtyards, deals were struck, news from distant lands was shared, and connections were forged that spanned continents. For a time, Merv was known as the Queen of the World, a title earned not through conquest, but through its unparalleled mastery of the desert crossroads and the immense wealth that flowed through its gates. Long before the Silk Road reached its zenith, an equally vital network of sea lanes thrived in the ancient world. At the heart of the maritime trade, connecting the great civilizations of Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley, was the island kingdom of Dilmun, widely identified by archaeologists with modern-day Bahrain. Its strategic location in the middle of the Persian Gulf made it the perfect intermediary, a natural meeting point for ships sailing from opposite ends of the known world. Dilmun was a place of transfer, where goods from one culture were offloaded and traded for the products of another, all without the merchants themselves having to complete the entire perilous journey. Dilmun's prosperity was built upon its role as a vital link in the trade of essential resources. Cuneiform texts from Mesopotamia speak frequently of large ships from Dilmun arriving laden with copper, a crucial metal for making bronze tools and weapons. This copper was mined in the distant land of Magan, likely modern Oman, and then transported to Dilmun, which controlled its distribution to the cities of Sumer and Akkad. In return, Mesopotamian merchants sent agricultural surpluses like grain, wool, and oils to Dilmun. The island kingdom did not simply facilitate this exchange, it managed and profited from it, becoming a wealthy and powerful entity in its own right. The island itself was described in ancient texts as a near paradise, a land blessed with abundant fresh water from natural artesian springs. This unique feature in an otherwise arid region made it an exceptionally fertile place, famous for its sweet dates. This natural bounty not only sustained its population, but also provided another valuable commodity for trade. Dilmun became known as a pure and sacred land, a place where sickness and death were unknown, which further enhanced its mythical status and prestige among its trading partners. Its extensive burial mounds, numbering in the thousands, attest to a large and prosperous population that thrived over many centuries. The authority of Dilmun was not based on a large army, but on its reputation as a reliable and neutral trading center. It was the central bank and warehouse of the Gulf, a trusted partner for powerful empires. Its rulers maintained this status through careful diplomacy and by ensuring the port was safe and efficient for all who came to trade. The legacy of Dilmun is that of a maritime power that understood the importance of its geographical position and leveraged it to become an indispensable hub in the ancient world's earliest international sea trade, connecting the great river valley civilizations through the steady and peaceful exchange of goods. On the high plateaus of what is now modern Ethiopia and Eritrea, the kingdom of Aksum emerged as a formidable commercial power around the 1st century CE. Its strength lay in its strategic control over the Red Sea, which, was a critical maritime corridor linking the Roman Empire with the riches of India and the Horn of Africa. The main port of Aksum, Adulis, became a bustling multicultural hub where ships from Egypt, Arabia, Persia, and India would dock. The kingdom acted as a funnel, channeling exotic African goods like ivory, rhinoceros horn, tortoise shells, and obsidian from the interior to the waiting international markets. One of Aksum's most significant innovations, and honestly a clear sign of its economic sophistication, was the minting of its own coinage. Beginning in the late 3rd century CE, Aksumite kings issued coins in gold, silver, and bronze, inscribed in both Greek and the local Ge'ez script. This was a remarkable development, since Aksum was one of the very few kingdoms outside the Roman and Persian spheres to do so. The coins weren't just for internal use. They actually facilitated international trade, providing a standardized and trusted medium of exchange. The presence of Aksumite gold coins, with their distinctive royal portraits, in places as far away as India and the Eastern Mediterranean, really speaks volumes about the kingdom's extensive commercial reach and its status as a major player in the global economy. The kingdom's power was further amplified by its ability to bridge two worlds, the African continent and the Mediterranean basin. While Adulis managed sea trade, the capital city of Aksum, located inland, served as the administrative and ceremonial center. From here, trade routes extended deep into the African interior, bringing valuable materials that were, highly sought after in the Roman world. In return, goods like Roman glassware, textiles, and metal tools flowed into Africa through Aksum. This control over both the source of African goods and the gateway to international buyers gave Aksum a unique and powerful position in the ancient commercial network. The influence of Aksum is perhaps best symbolized by its monumental architecture, especially the giant carved granite obelisks, or stelae, that still stand today. The largest of these, rivaling the obelisks of ancient Egypt, were markers for royal tombs, and really clear statements of power and prosperity. this grandeur was funded entirely by the wealth generated from trade. Through its strategic location, sophisticated use of coinage, and its role as a cultural and commercial intermediary, the Kingdom of Aksum rose to prominence as one of the four great powers of its time, alongside Rome, Persia, and China, its influence resonating across the Red Sea and beyond. The authority of great trade cities like Merv, Dilmun, and Aksum was not accidental. It was carefully constructed through a combination of astute economic policy, ambitious infrastructure projects, and skillful diplomacy. The most direct source of power came from the ability to levy taxes and customs duties on the goods that passed through their territories. This steady stream of revenue was the financial engine that powered the state. It allowed rulers to pay for administrators, maintain order, and fund projects that would, in turn, attract more trade. A well-managed tax system, seen as a fair price for safe passage and access to markets, was the bedrock of a stable and prosperous commercial hub. This revenue was often reinvested into building and maintaining critical infrastructure. For a land-based city like Merv, this meant ensuring that the roads were safe from bandits, and that the caravanserai were large and secure enough to accommodate vast numbers of merchants and their animals. For maritime powers like Dilmun and Aksum, it meant dredging harbors, building lighthouses, and constructing durable wharves and warehouses to protect goods from the elements. These investments were not just for show. They were practical necessities that made a city more efficient, reliable, and attractive to traders, giving it a competitive edge over rival locations. Diplomacy was the third pillar of commercial authority. No city, however powerful, existed in a vacuum. Maintaining peaceful relationships with the powerful empires and smaller tribes that surrounded them was essential for the uninterrupted flow of trade. Rulers of trade cities often sent emissaries to distant courts, bearing gifts and negotiating treaties that guaranteed safe passage for their merchants in foreign lands. Aksum, for example, maintained strong diplomatic and commercial ties with the Eastern Roman Empire, which ensured its access to Mediterranean markets. These alliances were a form of long-term investment, creating a stable political environment in which commerce could flourish without the constant threat of disruption. Together, these three elements, taxation, infrastructure, and diplomacy, created a self-reinforcing cycle of prosperity and power. The wealth from taxes funded infrastructure, which attracted more trade. The increase in trade made the city a more valuable partner, strengthening its diplomatic position. This in turn helped secure the trade routes, ensuring that the tax revenue continued to flow. It was through this deliberate and patient management of their commercial advantages that the rulers of these ancient cities built an enduring authority, one based not on conquest, but on the creation of a stable and predictable environment for international exchange. The immense prosperity of ancient trade cities, while impressive, was often built on foundations that were susceptible to change. Just as they rose on the currents of commerce, many of these great hubs declined when those currents shifted. The global trade network was a dynamic system, and the rerouting of major trade arteries could spell doom for a city that had once been central. For instance, the development of new maritime routes that bypassed old overland paths could render a desert oasis like Merv less critical. If traders found a safer, faster, or cheaper way to transport their goods, they would inevitably take it, leaving the once bustling markets of the old route to fall silent. Political instability in distant lands could have a devastating ripple effect. The fall of a major empire, such as the Western Roman Empire or China's Han Dynasty, would cause demand for luxury goods to plummet. A city whose economy was heavily reliant on providing those goods would suffer immensely. Suddenly, there were fewer buyers for the silks, spices, and ivory that had fueled its wealth. This decline in demand meant fewer caravans and fewer ships, leading to a sharp drop in tax revenues and a shrinking of the urban economy. The fortunes of these trade cities were inextricably linked to the stability and prosperity of their trading partners. Furthermore, the rise of new commercial powers created competition. A city that once held a near monopoly over a particular route or resource might find itself challenged by a rival with a better harbor, a more strategic location, or a more aggressive trade policy. The balance of power was in constant flux. For example, the rise of Islamic maritime power in the Indian Ocean eventually altered the trade dynamics that had long favored Aksum. As new ports and new political alliances emerged, the old, established centers could find themselves sidelined, their strategic importance slowly eroding over time as commerce flowed to new and more advantageous locations. This process of decline was rarely sudden or dramatic. It was a slow, gradual unraveling as the interconnected factors that had created a city's prosperity began to work in reverse. A slight shift in a trade route might lead to a small drop in revenue, which in turn meant less money for maintaining infrastructure. Decaying infrastructure could make the city less attractive to the remaining traders, leading to a further decline in commerce. Over decades, or even centuries, this slow spiral could reduce a once mighty metropolis to a shadow of its former self, its grand buildings a lonely testament to a more prosperous age. In addition to the shifting dynamics of trade, environmental changes often played a crucial role in the decline of these ancient commercial centers. Many trade cities were located in fragile ecosystems, and their long-term survival depended on a delicate balance with nature. Merv, the oasis city, was entirely dependent on the intricate network of canals that diverted water from the Murghab River. Overexploitation, poor maintenance due to political turmoil, or a natural shift in the river's course could have catastrophic consequences. A reduction in the water supply would lead to agricultural failure, making it impossible to support a large urban population, and the constant stream of visiting caravans. For maritime cities like Dilmun, changes in the coastal environment could be equally devastating. The gradual silting up of a harbor, a natural process that can be accelerated by land use changes upstream, could render it inaccessible to the large ships that were the lifeblood of its economy. A slight rise or fall in sea level over centuries could also impact the viability of port facilities that had been built for specific conditions. These environmental pressures were often slow and insidious, a creeping threat that undermined the very geographical advantages upon which the city's prosperity had been founded, forcing trade to move to more accessible coastal locations. Political instability within the city or its immediate hinterland was another powerful agent of decline. Internal power struggles, civil wars, or the rise of new, less commercially minded rulers could shatter the stability that traders relied upon. A new regime that imposed exorbitant taxes, failed to maintain security on the roads, or neglected diplomatic relationships would quickly find that merchants would seek alternative routes. The authority and trust that had been built up over generations could be squandered in a short period of misrule. The delicate web of relationships that supported a trading hub was easily broken by internal conflict. Often, these factors combined to create a perfect storm of decline. A period of political infighting could lead to the neglect of vital irrigation systems, which, combined with a period of natural drought, could trigger a widespread agricultural collapse. The resulting famine and social unrest would make the city an unsafe and undesirable place for trade, causing merchants to abandon it. In this way, political, environmental, and economic factors were deeply intertwined. The decline of a great trade city was rarely due to a single cause, but rather the cumulative effect of multiple pressures that overwhelmed its ability to adapt and sustain its commercial dominance. Though the great markets of Merv, Dilmun, and Aksum have long since fallen silent, their legacy endures. These cities stand as powerful reminders that human history has been shaped as much by cooperation and exchange as it has by conflict. They demonstrate that wealth and influence can be built upon the foundations of trust, stability, and the facilitation of peaceful commerce. The story of these ancient hubs is a testament to the universal human impulse to connect with others, to share resources, and to seek prosperity, not through isolation, but through interaction. They were the original engines of globalization, creating a world that was far more interconnected than is often realized. The ruins of these cities offer profound lessons about the delicate interplay between geography, commerce, and civilization. They show us how a strategic location can be leveraged to create immense prosperity, but also how vulnerable that prosperity can be to shifts in trade routes, political alliances, and the environment. The fall of Merv due to shifting rivers and new routes, or the decline of Aksum as maritime power moved elsewhere, highlights the need for adaptability. The success of these cities depended on their ability to manage complex systems of infrastructure, diplomacy, and finance, and their decline often began when that management failed. Furthermore, these ancient centers were the crucibles where cultures met and mingled, leaving a lasting impact on the world. The spread of religions like Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam along the Silk Road was facilitated by the cosmopolitan environment of cities like Merv. The exchange of scientific knowledge, artistic styles, and technological innovations that occurred in these hubs accelerated human development across continents. They were not just points of economic transfer, but also points of creative fusion, where the constant influx of new ideas sparked intellectual and cultural growth that radiated outwards along the trade routes. Ultimately, the story of Merv, Dilmun, and Aksum is our own story, writ large in the annals of history. They remind us that our modern interconnected world is not a new phenomenon, but the continuation of an ancient tradition. The principles that governed their success, stable infrastructure, fair regulation, and open diplomacy, remain as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. In their weathered stones and buried harbors, we see the enduring power of trade to build cities, to connect cultures, and to shape the course of human civilization itself. A quiet but powerful force that continues to shape our world. Subscribe to Eternal Echoes for more ancient mysteries.